Hello, welcome to Hoffman Guitars. With the sides bent, it's time to bring them together and prepare the skeleton of the guitar for its top and its back. The neck block is the obvious heart of the guitar's structure, but even the butt block, something often overlooked, has seen some design innovations in our shop. The end blocks and the kerfing, along with adding strength to the sides, ensures the glue joints are strong enough to keep the instrument sounding and playing its best for decades to come. So let's get to work and see what's happening in the shop. Properly sanding a piece of wood reduces the surface area. This means less moisture escapes and makes the wood more stable. It may also affect how sound waves bounce around. And a freshly sanded surface absolutely creates a stronger glue joint. Additionally, finely finished materials are a sign of our dedication to detailed craftsmanship. Since you can't exactly sand its interior once the guitar is closed, we do it now. I mostly finish sanding the top and back while thicknessing. I work to 180 grit. This leaves a very fine surface. But for the sides, the heat and the water from bending raises the grain dramatically. To clean this up without losing my mind, or at the very least causing bursitis in my shoulder and my elbow, I use a flap sander on the drill press with first 80 and then 180 grit. I leave the outside unsanded for now to avoid thinning the wood prematurely. Our neck blocks are made of mahogany, with the grain oriented to match the sides. We bulk cut these on the table saw, which leaves a very rough finish. I use the belt sander to round the corners and then sand everything to a 220 grit finish. This is partially for aesthetics, but also for wood stability. The harp guitars I'm building right now do add a twist. For most guitars, I use a newer jig to cut the dovetail. That gets cut later. This gives excellent control over the neck angle, and that newer jig is much easier to adjust. However, the arm of the harp guitars gets in the way for that jig. So for the harp guitars, I'm using a set of jigs my father had custom made back in the 1970s. They're quite finicky to adjust, but they allow me to cut the dovetail into the neck block before the sides are fully joined. This allows me to do so before the harp arm is in the way. Traditionally, the butt blocks are mahogany, but they have a potentially fatal flaw. You can watch my shorts on the abandoned Gibson to see what that is. Usually, the grain runs parallel to the sides, but if the sides start to crack, it will propagate right through the end block and into the other side. This can potentially split the entire guitar in half. As well, if the tapered end pin takes a hit, it acts like a wedge and can split the mahogany block wide open, which can propagate into the sides, and again, split the sides in half. There is, though, another modern issue: electronics. Most acoustic guitar pickups use an end pin jack. The traditional end block is just too thick for the standard part. It requires some modifications that can be quite awkward to make. Following a suggestion from our friend Jim Olson, about 30 years ago we switched to a 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood. Because of the cross-grain plies, it is nearly impossible to split. It is both thinner and stronger than mahogany, making it a perfect choice for modern guitars. If the sides of the guitar aren't square to the top, it can be very difficult to get consistent binding thickness. To prevent this, I glue the end blocks in while the sides are clamped tightly into the construction mold. For later construction processes, we'll use spreaders to hold the guitar in place, but those spreaders can deform the mold, and we don't want to do that. So for these early stages, I prefer to use clamps. Consistency is key. I clamp the sides into the mold in the same order every time to ensure they stay perfectly square throughout the process. Guitar sides are always bent slightly long. I mark them against the mold and trim them for an easy fit. Because the center joint is eventually hidden by either the neck or the decorative end graft, the fit doesn't need to be airtight, just clean without too much gap. For most of our guitars, the sides are flat when they meet the blocks. However, on certain models, such as the jumbos, the end block needs to match the curve of the side. We use a specialized jig with a guide fence on the disc sander to profile the blocks to the exact radius needed. This is driven purely by the aesthetic design of the guitar. Gluing in the blocks is a critical structural moment. I align the blocks perfectly to the center line and ensure they stay square as they are clamped in. As with all structural joints, I normally use hot hide glue for this. However, one of the jumbos I'm building is Coocoo, which is a naturally oily wood and doesn't play well with hide glue. So for that guitar, I'm using Titebond for all the joints on the back and the sides. Cutaways are a very popular option for upper fret access. Contrary to popular belief, they don't have a noticeable effect on the instrument's sound. The area removed is heavily braced. It just doesn't contribute to the voice of the guitar. My father and I have always preferred the Florentine cutaway. That's the pointy one. It's made of 2 pieces of wood and has a very strong block at the corner where they meet. This makes it a much stronger joint than the rounded Venetian style. Fitting a cutaway is a careful process. We have to trim the neck and point blocks to match the curve of the cutaway, but also we need to ensure that the top still has one full-width transverse brace. Without that brace, the area under the fingerboard could literally implode under string tension. Don't ask me how I know. We hand fit each mahogany support block to account for slight variations in each guitar. Because the guitar sides are so thin, they don't offer enough surface area to glue the top and back securely, especially once you route the channels for binding. To fix this, I glue linings inside the edges. While some builders will use individual blocks or solid bent strips, we used kerf linings. These are thicker strips of wood with saw cuts about every 1/4 of an inch. This leaves a thin web of wood that allows them to bend easily into the curves of the guitar. I like to joke that we have 1,000 clamps. It's not quite true, but we're not far off, and linings are the reason why. We use specialized tailor-designed lining clamps for the less curved areas and C-clamps for the tight curves of the waist and the shoulder. Again, it's hot hide glue for everything, except for the Coocoo Bird. The sides, blocks, and linings are the foundation of the instrument. If you get these right, the rest of the assembly isn't too hard. If you rush them or aren't careful, you'll be fighting the guitar every step of the way. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have questions about my work, please leave a comment below. If you want to support the channel, you can grab a t-shirt on our website or join my Patreon for extended behind-the-scenes restoration footage. We offer full repair services for all fretted stringed instruments and can do same-day setups on Saturdays. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and enjoy your guitar.